welcome to an extra after hours portion of Chef Jon's Cooking for Kids. Today, our main episode this week is making pizzas. So it takes a while to make pizza dough, to be quite honest, and wasn't about to put it through a full regular episode. So we're doing a special mini episode, so that way we can show you how to make a nice, quick, easy pizza dough at home. And then you can set up ahead of time, so that way you can also freeze it, and then you can have a pizza whenever you want. So here we go. So here we have all the ingredients you're going to need to prepare your pizza dough. So we need a high gluten flour or bread flour, and it's got a little more elasticity, and it's going to make let you stretch the dough without putting any holes into it. This is very important. You can use all-purpose flour, but I like to use the high gluten flour or the bread flour because it gives you that extra elasticity that you need to make the dough and to be able to stretch it when you make your pizza. Kosher salt to give it a little bit of flavor. I have two different kinds of yeast. You can use either one. It's the same weight ratio. We have active dry yeast, which requires a little extra step, or you can buy active or bread yeast, or bread machine yeast, I should say. Basically, that means you can just dump it right into the bowl as you're mixing it, and you don't have to do anything extra to it. What you do have to do with the active dry yeast is add a little bit of water to it to reactivate the yeast. The trick is not to use too hot of water. You want to keep it about body temperature, because anything above 120 degrees will kill the yeast and you won't get any rise out of your dough. So that is that. So like I said, we'll measure it all out, and then I'll show you how to set up the yeast to get it going. Okay, so we're going to start off. We're going to turn our scale on. I have a nice digital scale, so we're going to put our bowl right on top of it. One this thing to wash. Now when I turn on the scale, it automatically zeroes it out to whatever's on the scale, so I put the bowl on top. And then we're going to set our unit, because this has a multi-unit phase. We're going to set the pounds and ounces. Also, too, if you ever need to, if you have a digital scale at home, when you put your bowl on there, so that way you don't get an inaccurate measurement, there's usually a button that'll say tare on it, which will take away anything that's already on there and zero it out, so that way you can start from scratch. Alright, so we'll start with the flour. It's going to be 42 ounces, or 2 pounds and 10 ounces, because a pound is 16 ounces, so that's times 2, that's 32, and then we add 10 more to get us 42. So we're going to do 2 pounds, 10 ounces in the bowl. So this will make enough for at least 2 nice-sized pizzas. I usually make about 16-inch pizzas. So we're at 2 pounds, 3 ounces, and we got enough on there to get me to 10. Come on. Alright. Put more. 1.5, 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 2 pounds, 10 ounces. Right on the 9. Alright. Now the rest is all going to be I use spoon measurements, so it doesn't have to, so it's a little less accurate, but it'll work just the same. Alright, so we're going to do 3 teaspoons of sugar. Now you might wonder why we're putting the sugar in the flour. The sugar acts as food for the yeast, because the yeast lives off off of the carbohydrates. 2, 3. Alright, and then we're going to add 3 3/4 teaspoons. So if you're fancy, you have a 1/4 ounce teaspoon, so 1 teaspoons and then 3/4 teaspoons. And then that's going to be all, and then we got to do 2 teaspoons of yeast. I'm going to do that last, because I like doing it last. 1, 2, 3. Now we have all our dry ingredients, and for those of you that don't have instant or bread machine yeast, I'll show you what my trick is for when I am going to use that instead. So just put this to the side because this is all set. Okay. So take your yeast packet, just put it on the side. I have a little bowl for it just so we can activate it. So we're gonna start on our wet ingredients next. So we'll tear it. We have a cup already. Pour it into the bowl, and then we're gonna switch it to ounces because it's fancy like that. And we're gonna pour in 27 ounces of water. Extra. Okay, so I got 27 ounces. Now what I would take from this, if I was going to use the active dry yeast, which is about 2 teaspoons of yeast, is I'll just dump the packet into the bowl and then take a little bit of the water out of my water here and add it here just to make a little slush out of it, and then I'll let that activate for about 2 or 3 minutes just to get the yeast woken up, and then I would turn over to the machine, and then I would pour it in as the machine is mixing, and then I would add the water to it. Okay, and then the last ingredient we need is 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and the olive oil adds a little bit of flavor to it, just like the salt, and a little bit of more elasticity to it as well. 1. Alright, so we have all our ingredients measured out and weighed and scaled, and now we're going to move it over to our mixer, and then we're going to start mixing it all together. Alright, so we have all our dry ingredients set up on the stand mixer right here. We got our dough hook in. We have our liquid all ready to go. I like to put the little splash guard on there just because I like to. So we're going to raise up you're going to follow your mixer's instructions, but I'm going to raise up ours. Some have a flip top to it, but I prefer the lift. So we're going to turn it on to stir to start, and we're just going to let all the salt, the sugar, and everything all mix together real quick, just for like 2 or 3 seconds. And then we're going to slowly add in our water, and then we're going to crank it up to medium here, which is about 2 to 3 on our mixer, and then we're going to let it mix for 5 minutes until it starts to come together and looks like dough. All right. So we've got all the dry ingredients. Looks pretty good mix. Just going to take the wet ingredients, and we're just going to slowly drizzle it in there. So that way you don't have a glob and it gets a little bit better evenly distributed. Right. And you're going to hear the mixer start to work a little bit. As you can see, it's starting to come together and take all the dry flour out of the side. So we just want to start incorporating. Once that it gets a little bit more incorporated, we're going to set our timer for 5 minutes, and then we're going to kick it into 3rd gear. Okay. All right. Looks about good. And we're going to set our timer for 5 minutes, and then boom. Now we're going to come back in and check on our dough status. Okay, so it looks like we're getting in the ready to be the home stretch here. And that's time. We're going to turn off our mixer, turn off our alarm. Now we're going to take it down. Machine, unhook the hook. Off the stands, move the dough hook. To clean off the machine, what you want to do is you just want to take your thumb and forefinger and then just run along the hook. Get all that dough off of there. A, it helps ensure you get all the dough. B, it's one less thing you got to clean. It's an easier thing to clean up. So now we got our dough off the mixer. We got it started. We got it all the way there. Now what we're going to do, we're going to let it rest for an hour, and we're going to let it proof. We're going to let it rise. What we're going to do is also going to allow that gluten to develop, so we can help stretch it out nice and thin, which is why you never see in pizza shops that they punch holes in the dough, because they have a good gluten network, and it makes it nice and strong. So that way you can get it very thin, and it'll be nice and crisp. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're just going to take our dough here, and we're just going to scrape it and get as much as we can out of the bottom of the bowl. Now the dough should not be too sticky, and you should not need to have to put flour down on your workbench once you pour the dough out onto the board. Alright. Got what we can. Alright, so we got it all out. We're going to take our olive oil bottle, and we're just going to run a little bead around the top of the bowl, and then we're going to, so that way it'll all ooze down on the sides. Alright, just like that. Can't do it like that, but it's all coming down the sides. Okay, so now we're going to take the dough, we're going to make a ball out of it, and then we're going to cover it with a towel. Stretch it out a little bit. I like a nice, I don't want to see any wrinkles on my dough when I put it in the bowl to let it rest, but it's up to you. So make a nice big dough ball. Okay. Now we're just going to drop it into the bottom of that bowl where all that oil has settled down. We're going to take a towel. I like to use a cloth towel because I'm old-fashioned, as Sarah likes to say. And I'm just going to push it down on top. It doesn't have to be a sealed. You just don't want to crust to form while it sits in the air. Okay, so we're just going to cover up the top of that dough so that way crust doesn't form. And then we're going to set our timer for 1 hour. And then we're going to check to see if it's doubled. And we're going to take it off from there. Alright, so now we're coming in to about right up on that hour now, and then is our timer. Okay, so now we got our dough here. It's risen a little bit. You'll notice that it's gotten a little bit firmer. Alright, so we got a nice and full now. Save your towel because we're going to use that again in a minute. So we'll just punch it down now. You'll get all the excess air out of it. And then we're just going to roll it out onto the table. Just be careful, it's going to be a little oily from the oil that we put in the bottom of the bowl earlier. Should be nice and soft. Alright, so we're going to lay a little bit of flour down for where we're going to put our dough when we're done. Just going to put a nice little layer on the counter there. I like to leave mine on the counter while it rests. Because now after we cut them out to the size we want, we're going to let them rest for at least another hour before we use them. Right. So I'm using my dough knife here. We're going to cut them up roughly into, I think is going to be the right amount. And we'll turn our scale back on. Right unit on there. So we're looking for a nice 22-ounce dough. Now I know some of the other some of the store-bought brands of dough, they sell more, they sell less, but 22 I found is a nice number. Okay, so that's 1 pound 5 cents. That's it. That's going to be 1 pound 7 ounces. We're just going to do the same thing we did again before. We're going to make it into a nice tight ball, and then we're going to pinch all to the bottom at the end, and then turn it as we are pinching it together at the end. So we have a nice little firm tight ball like that. Right. Okay, if you don't get it right on the scale the first time, you can always come here and take away. About many of you, but I can't get away with just making one pizza anymore, so I gotta make 2. So it's always good to have a recipe that'll yield you 2 nice pizzas. So we got the 2 right there, and then the rest we can save for next time. And what I'll do is I'll just weigh this out. Over, that's okay, because it's only 2 ounces, so I didn't want to waste that. And then what we'll do is we'll just make this into a nice ball. And you can put it into a plastic bag and put it right in the freezer. You want to put it on a nice flat surface in the freezer so it freezes very nicely. You don't have to worry about any flour. don't have to worry about putting any flour down on it. So put that on the side. Now we're going to cover it again for at least another hour until we're getting ready to cook it. So we'll save it. Just cover it with a tea towel again. And then that is how you roll out the dough.